Okay, this is AP Chapter 13, Lecture 3, and starting off, this is a picture of the Holy Roman Empire right here. This is the boundary. And then you see the Habsburg dominions right here, and you see the Bourbon dominions right here. The Bourbons had France and Spain, and as you can see, the Habsburgs controlled Bohemia, Austria, and Hungary, and part of the Netherlands. Okay, now we move on to Poland. Poland with no central authority. Most Polish monarchs were foreigners and tools for foreign powers. So in this country, you're going to have very limited use for a specific monarch. They had a central legislative body called the Sejm, or Diet, but had no real power, as any single vote or liberum veto could stop a Sejm. What this means is everyone would have to agree unanimously for anything to pass, which is a huge weakness because majority rule is more flexible. So all it would take is one person to get bribed and the whole thing would fall apart. So that's what makes Poland disappear from the map in the 18th century. That and the fact that its geography is really flat and it's easy to invade. The Habsburg Empire and the Pragmatic Sanction. This is an important slide in terms of your test bank and FRQs. The Habsburgs held on to the title of Holy Roman Emperor, but the title depended on help from many other German states and principalities, so they need the loyalty of these principalities to hold it together. Their territories, some outside of Germany, were so geographically and culturally diverse that there was no real central government. And this also leads to the FRQ that was the decline of the Habsburg or Holy Roman Emperor. Despite internal difficulties, the empire increases under Leopold I, Joseph I, and Charles VI. So these are important monarchs to pay attention to. The Pragmatic Sanction was Charles' legal basis for a single line of inheritance within the Habsburg dynasty, putting his daughter Maria Theresa in charge. Problem: female ruler, male parliament are not going to be in favor of this after his death because they don't have to answer to him anymore. So Frederick of Prussia invades the Habsburg Empire and puts Maria at risk in 1740. So as soon as she comes into power, all the other European countries force the issue by pushing against the country and seeing to test her strength. Okay, this is a map of the Holy Roman Emperor, or the Habsburg Empire. It has Hungary, Galicia, Croatia, Austria, Bohemia, and Silesia. These are all parts of the Habsburg Empire. This is where the Habsburg Empire was being put on siege by the Ottomans, only to be rescued by Polish forces who came in to aid them. So that's a form of an alliance. Now we move under Prussia. Now this is an important name if you're doing the Prussia project. Hohenzollern family is the name of the family who's ruling. It's the rule of Frederick William, the Great Elector, and this is an important ruler. He raised taxes through force to build an army. That's huge. He built up the military with discipline. The Junkers were the German noble landlords in return for obedience to Frederick, so he could enforce serfdom. An army and elector becomes powerful allies. So he creates an army that he makes allies with. Frederick William's successors, his son William I, helps the Habsburgs in the War of Spanish Succession and becomes the King of Prussia. Frederick William I is the most successful, so you'd want to keep this person in your project. Made the strongest army in Europe, the symbol of power and unity while staying out of the war. Frederick II, or the Great, did not have wisdom of his father and invaded Silesia, starting a long war there. Now this is a map showing the expansion. So it starts here and slowly starts creeping out, and now you have a fairly substantial area of territory for Prussia. Russia is the Romanov dynasty, starting with the 17-year-old boy Michael and his two successors Alexei and Theodore II, who brought stability and modest bureaucratic centralization to Russia. Russia needed this after the reign of Ivan the Terrible. And Ivan the Terrible, and some reports just as interest, was a really great guy until he got into an accident which permanently changed his personality. Peter the Great, a very important leader of Russia. He came to power at the age of 10 and believed that the power of the Tsar must be secured from the jealousy and greed of the boyars, which were the nobility, and the streltsy, the guards of the Moscow garrison. So he believed that he should be above the military and above the nobility. He publicly executed rebellious streltsy and repressed and humiliated the boyars to show them who was in charge. He wanted to increase Russian military, so he drafted an army of 300,000 soldiers. He built a navy on the Baltic and went to war with the Ottomans. One real important thing, even till today, is that the Russians absolutely need a warm water port, which is in the Baltic Sea. In the Northern War, he defeats the Swedes and takes control of Estonia, Livonia, and parts of Finland. The main city that he created is St. Petersburg. He built a capital in honor of himself, which places forcibly built by the boyars that resembled small versions of Versailles. So he was really trying to imitate Versailles. Peter's son Alexei, with Charles VI of Habsburg, attempts a conspiracy against Peter and is sentenced to death and dies in prison under mysterious circumstances. So Peter's son tries an attempt on Peter's life, and Peter puts him down. And there's an interesting letter that goes with that. Here's St. Petersburg. As you can see, sailing and the huge structures behind it. Peter the Great, in his later years, Peter realized that he was faced with a lot of opposition, so he brings the nobility and the Russian Orthodox Church, two powers there, the church and the nobility, closer to the Tsar. The table of ranks makes a person's social position and privilege more important than lineage. He abolishes the patriarch and puts in its place the Holy Synod, which consisted of several bishops headed by a layman called a procurator general. Peter dies and leaves no successor as Russia becomes unstable. This is another key example. When a successor is not there, it creates instability. And this is where we'll stop.